For weeks, the world was told the war had two faces: America, Israel, Iran. That was the public map. That was the story repeated on television. But now, a new report suggests the war may have had a hidden actor: the United Arab Emirates. Not speaking publicly, not declaring war, not standing in front of cameras, but reportedly flying into Iranian airspace, striking Iranian targets, and staying silent while the world watched Washington and Tel Aviv take the spotlight. Now, hold on. Because if this report is true, then the Middle East may be crossing a line many people thought would never be crossed. For years, Iran saw the UAE as a rival, but not as a direct military actor striking inside Iranian territory. For years, Abu Dhabi walked a careful line with Tehran. Trade, back channels, quiet coexistence, strategic caution. But the war may have broken that balance. Iranian missiles and drones had shaken the UAE's sense of safety. Aviation was exposed. Tourism was threatened. Real estate confidence was hit. And for a country built on the image of security, luxury, finance, airports, ports, and global investment, that was not a small matter. Iran did not need to destroy Abu Dhabi to hurt Abu Dhabi. It only needed to make Abu Dhabi look unsafe. So the question is no longer only whether the UAE struck Iran. The deeper question is this: did Iran just push one of the Gulf's most powerful states across a line it may never be able to uncross? Before we break down what this means, let's listen to this report. Then I'll come back and show you why this may be one of the most important hidden turns in the war.
Now, everyone knew the United States was at war with Iran. Everyone knew Israel was at war with Iran. But there was a third country flying jets into Iranian airspace, hitting Iranian targets and telling no one. Well, this week, the secret is out. According to a report by the Wall Street Journal, the United Arab Emirates carried out military strikes on Iran, positioning the Gulf monarchy as an active participant in a war in which it had publicly claimed no involvement. Abu Dhabi said nothing. Washington said nothing. And for weeks, nobody knew. Among the reported operations was the strike on a refinery located on Iran's Lavan Island in the Persian Gulf. Now, reportedly, the attack occurred in early April, around the time President Trump announced a ceasefire following a 5-week air campaign. The strike triggered a massive fire and disrupted much of the refinery's production capacity for several months. Iran acknowledged at the time that the site had been attacked by an unspecified enemy, then responded by firing missiles and drones at the UAE and Kuwait.
Yes, I hope you followed up closely. It is explosive because it changes the story from a US-Israel war on Iran into something much bigger. A possible regionalized war where Gulf states were not just watching, but quietly participating. The key point is this: if the Wall Street Journal report is accurate, the UAE was not a neutral Gulf bystander. It was a hidden combatant. Reuters also reported the WSJ claim that the UAE secretly conducted strikes against Iran, including a reported strike on the Lavan Island refinery in early April, while noting Reuters could not independently verify the WSJ report. The Times of Israel also summarized the reported Lavan Island strike and said Iran later responded with missiles and drones at the UAE and Kuwait. What this means analytically: this is not just another military detail. This is a regional alignment shock. Until now, the public frame was simple. The United States was fighting Iran. Israel was fighting Iran. The Gulf states were nervous, exposed, and trying not to be dragged in. But this report changes that frame. It suggests the UAE may have moved from defensive alignment to offensive participation. That matters because the UAE had publicly presented itself as outside the war. If it was secretly striking Iranian infrastructure while saying little publicly, then Abu Dhabi was playing a double game, avoiding public ownership of the war while helping shape the battlefield. It means the war was not only fought by those who announced it, it may also have been fought by those who stayed silent. Why Lavan Island matters. The reported target was not random. Lavan Island sits in the Persian Gulf and is connected to Iran's oil infrastructure. A refinery strike is not just symbolic. It hits energy capacity, revenue, domestic supply, and state confidence. If the strike disrupted refinery production for months, then this was not a warning shot. It was economic warfare. That is important because Iran's power does not only come from missiles. It also comes from its energy system, its ability to export, refine, supply, and survive sanctions. So a strike on Lavan Island would send a very direct message. Your Gulf rivals can now reach your energy arteries. That is a major psychological shift. Why Iran's response matters. Iran reportedly acknowledged at the time that the site had been attacked by an unspecified enemy, then responded with missiles and drones at the UAE and Kuwait. That matters because Iran may have known, or suspected, who was behind the attack before the public did. So the timeline becomes very important. The UAE says nothing. Washington says nothing. Iran says an unspecified enemy hit the site. Iran strikes back at Gulf targets. Weeks later, the report suggests the UAE may have been involved. That means some of Iran's retaliation may not have been random escalation. It may have been punishment against states Tehran believed had quietly joined the war. This is where the story becomes bigger than one strike. If the UAE really hit Iran, the Gulf security map has changed. For years, Gulf monarchies feared Iran, competed with Iran, and accused Iran of using proxies. But direct offensive action against Iranian territory was a different level. That means the Gulf states may no longer be only protected clients of the United States. They may be becoming active military participants in the anti-Iran structure. That structure would include the United States as the global military umbrella, Israel as the frontline anti-Iran military actor, the UAE as a quiet Gulf strike partner, Saudi Arabia as a possible political and strategic swing power, Iran as the regional power facing encirclement from multiple directions. That is damaging for Iran because it weakens the assumption that Iran can pressure Gulf states without them crossing into direct retaliation. The strongest part of this report is not only the strike. It is the silence. Abu Dhabi said nothing. Washington said nothing. The operation remained hidden. The public did not know. That means the public narrative was incomplete. People were watching US and Israeli moves while a Gulf state was allegedly participating in the shadows. The UAE did not need to declare war to change the war. It only needed to strike and stay silent. According to the Wall Street Journal, if the report is accurate, the UAE has not publicly acknowledged the strikes. Reuters said it could not independently verify the report. However, the deeper question becomes, if Gulf states are now secretly willing to strike Iran, has Iran's regional deterrence started to crack? Or has the Middle East entered a more dangerous phase where every silent strike creates a delayed retaliation? That is the danger. And that is where the next part of this report will likely deepen the story. Let's listen.
Well, the first clue of something unusual came in mid-March. Footage surfaced showing a fighter jet over Iran that analysts said did not appear to belong to either Israel or the United States. Researchers later pointed to images allegedly showing French Mirage fighter jets and Chinese Wing Loong drones. Now, the UAE reportedly used Western-made fighter jets believed to be Mirage aircraft, but has not publicly acknowledged the operation. For years, the UAE has walked a careful line with Iran: trade ties, diplomatic back channels, quiet coexistence. But the war changed everything. Since the start of the Iran war, UAE air defenses have intercepted and destroyed 537 ballistic missiles, more than 2,000 drone attacks, and 26 cruise missiles fired from Iran. The conflict severely impacted the UAE's aviation, tourism and real estate sectors, the very foundations of Abu Dhabi's economic model. Gulf officials said the war fundamentally altered Abu Dhabi's thinking, especially for the future.
Yes, this second part deepens the story in a very important way, because it delves into why the attacks may have happened. Abu Dhabi's old strategy of quiet coexistence with Iran may have broken under the pressure of Iranian missiles, drones, aviation disruption, tourism losses, and threats to the UAE's economic model. This report adds a key shift. The UAE did not simply wake up and decide to attack Iran. The war may have changed Abu Dhabi's threat calculation. For years, the UAE had a careful relationship with Iran. It competed with Tehran. It feared Tehran. It aligned with the United States. It normalized ties with Israel through the Abraham Accords. But it also maintained trade channels, diplomatic backdoors, and a practical relationship across the Gulf. That was the UAE's balancing act. This excerpt says the war may have destroyed that balance. If UAE air defenses really had to intercept hundreds of ballistic missiles, thousands of drones, and dozens of cruise missiles, then Abu Dhabi was no longer looking at Iran as a distant rival. It was looking at Iran as a direct threat to the airports, ports, hotels, towers, property markets, airlines, oil facilities, and global investor confidence that make the UAE's economic model work. That is the critical point. For Iran, missiles and drones are military tools. For the UAE, those same missiles and drones threaten its brand. And the UAE is not just a country. It is a brand of safety, money, aviation, luxury, logistics, real estate, tourism, and global finance. When that brand is threatened, Abu Dhabi's calculation changes. The aircraft clue matters. The footage from mid-March is important because it creates a mystery trail. At first, people saw aircraft over Iran that did not look American or Israeli. Then analysts began asking who else had the platforms. Then the Wall Street Journal report allegedly tied the UAE to the operation. The UAE is not just a rich Gulf state relying on others. It has a sophisticated air force. It operates Western fighter aircraft, including Mirage 2009 jets, and has used Chinese-made Wing Loong drones in past regional conflicts. Bellingcat documented the UAE's acquisition and use of Wing Loong 2 drones, and open-source military profiles note the UAE's Mirage 2009 and unmanned systems capability. So if analysts were pointing to Mirage-type aircraft or Wing Loong drones, the implication was clear. The UAE had the tools to operate quietly across the Gulf. UAE officials later said their air defenses had dealt with hundreds of ballistic missiles, more than 2,000 drones, and dozens of cruise missiles since the start of the Iranian attacks. That is a sustained campaign against the confidence that Abu Dhabi sells to the world. The UAE's vulnerability is not only military, it is economic psychology. Dubai and Abu Dhabi depend heavily on the image of safety. Airlines must operate. Tourists must arrive. Investors must feel secure. Luxury property must keep selling. Ports must keep moving. Global executives must believe the UAE is insulated from the region's chaos. Iranian missile and drone attacks damage that perception. So if the war hit aviation, tourism, and real estate, it hit the foundation of the UAE's economic model. Then Abu Dhabi may have concluded that silence and diplomacy were no longer enough. You realize that the war was sold to the world as a simple confrontation, America and Israel on one side, Iran on the other. But the deeper we look, the more complicated the map becomes. The UAE may have been operating in the shadows. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Kuwait chose distance. China held economic leverage. India watched its energy security tremble. And Iran suddenly faced not just missiles, but a shifting regional order. That is the real story. Not only who fired, but who stayed silent, who joined secretly, who refused publicly, who negotiated quietly, and who gained leverage while the world watched the battlefield. Because in modern geopolitics, power does not always announce itself. Sometimes it flies without a flag. Sometimes it hides behind diplomacy. Sometimes it appears as silence. And sometimes the most important actor is not the one dropping the bombs, but the one controlling the exit. If this analysis helped you see the hidden structure behind this war, subscribe to the channel now. Hit the like button so more people can see this breakdown. Share this video with someone who still thinks this is only America, Israel, and Iran. And turn on notifications, because the next phase of this crisis may not begin with a public declaration. It may begin with another secret alignment, another quiet meeting, or another strike no one admits at first. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Did the UAE just cross a line that changes the Gulf forever? Or is this the beginning of a much larger anti-Iran front? This is Liberation Lens, where perspective matters, and where we do not just follow the headline, we follow the power behind it.